Hello everyone, today we continue learning Python and Django, and today I'll explain or start explaining about Django query optimization. So let's start. First of all, I want to say that Django query optimization, so ORM query optimization, that's what I meant, is not an easy topic to explain. And if you have no idea about Django, models, applications, settings, SQL, how databases work, how Django works with databases, then that video is not for you. You need to improve your knowledge and after that return to that video, because if you have never worked with Django, that information is useless for you. But if you are working with Django or have ever worked with Django or want to work with Django in your future, then that video is really important for you. Because Django is a great framework. But a lot of people use it, and I as well use it, do not use its full potential. That's what I mean. Because SQL is a really hard topic to really work with excellently. Like databases, data optimization, all the things are really complicated. And because of that, we need to understand what are different functions, different patterns that help us to improve our SQL queries, to improve our Django application, and how to really work with Django and use its full potential. And because of that, let's just dive into it. So I have my products application right here. It's a simple app with only one model inside of it, model called product. And I wrote two comments right here. So these are the views that our company, our project requires. So the first view is products slash, so kind of a REST API. Products slash that should give us title, manufacturer, and price of all of our products. For example, you're building a shop, and your shop needs a catalog that will show all of your products. That catalog will be accessible using products slash URL. And what fields do we need to show right here? Title, manufacturer, and price, because our product can have a lot of information and we don't need to show all of that information on the list page of our products. We can show all of that information right here when products slash ID is used. So in products slash ID we use title, manufacturer, price, ABC. And now let's go to our model itself. We have title, a simple char field, manufacturer char field, price, integer field, ABC fields, again, just for an example, and product secret ID. So imagine that all of these fields, except for product secret ID, are very important for our user. So they carry some kind of information, but product secret ID should never go to our user. For example, product secret ID is used for our own company invoices or some kind of like internal thing. So we only need to show it inside of an admin page and in some kind of super user accessible URLs. So products and products ID should never ever show product secret ID. And again, products, just product slash, should never show ABC, because that information is too much for just a list of products. Okay, so now let's write simple ORM queries. And how we can do it? Well, first of all, let's import from products.models, let's import our product. And now we will write like the real queries or the real SQL queries, ORM queries, whatever, for those URLs. So I will not use any kind of like serializers, of serializers. I will not like write views. I'll just write my ORM queries, because today we're talking about SQL and because of that ORM optimization. Okay, so let's do it. For product slash, what we can do? Product objects all, like that. So product objects all gives us all of our products. So as you can see, product 1, product 2, product 3. That's just great. And now what I want to do? I want to, I don't know, for example, get all of the values that we need. Title, manufacturer, and price. How we can do it? Let's just return a list. So product for product in product objects all. If you have no idea about list comprehensions, we just use for, and the first value is what we return. So if I just put product for product in product objects all, what will return? Like the real product, and we will construct a list out of the values that are returned right here. So for example, if I will put 1, we will see 111. So the first value is what we return. And after that we have our for loop that really gives us the values that we can or want to use. And in our case, we need to return title, manufacturer, and price. So what we can do is use product.title inside of a tuple, product.manufacturer, and product.price. Okay, so now as you can see, we have test 1, so these are my products for test. And as you can see, we have our values. So we can return that to front end, we can return that to whatever, and be happy with our queries. So our query, our products/URL works. That's just great. Let's move to products ID. But there is a problem. There is a problem in that code. That problem is inside of product.objects.o. And actually there are two types of problems. First of all, we don't use pagination, so we literally get the whole products table. That may be bad, but today we're talking about optimization, like real query optimization. So how can we optimize that product objects.o query? And do we even need to optimize it? So let's just use products variable and assign products variable to product.objects.o. Let's run it. So now, as you can see in my debug panel, I can see my products query set 3. So everything is alright right here. But what do we have inside of our query set? We have our query. So in Django, query inside of query set is a real SQL statement that you want to execute. And what we can do is use products.query, and as you can see, it's just an object. And if you want to see the real SQL query, you should translate it to a string. So let's do it. And what we can see right here. So again, in products/ we only need title, manufacturer, and price. What do we get right here? Product ID. And I want to say that product ID is we cannot query, so product ID is required. We cannot omit it in our queries. Product ID is required for Django to understand to understand where the current model is. So for example, you have a query set and you want to really like see where a model with ID number 1, where is model with ID number 2. So Django uses ID every time, and you cannot omit it in your SQL query. So ID is normal, okay. So it's just used by Django to really see where are different models located. Then product title is another field that we need inside of our products/URL. That's great. Manufacturer, we need it as well. Price, we need it as well. But our query does not end right here. We use other 4 values. So we query product A, product B, product C, product secret ID. So what does that mean? That means that instead of just getting the values that we need, we really just execute select all from products product table. And in the previous video, or in my last video, in the previous videos, I talked about select all, import all, and why is it bad. Okay, so what is the problem with that query? There are 3 problems that I can think of, and the first one is really, it's really specific, but it's worth a mention. In the previous video, I talked about select all from a table, import all, and a lot of you may heard about it, so you can watch that video right now. A lot of you heard that I said that a lot of platforms today, like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, they use a special kind of a billing system. So instead of like taking $100 from your account, like the day you buy your product, you buy your database, for example, you buy your server, instead of that, they're using a specific model of billing. They use the time that your queries, SQL queries, whatever, had been executing for, and they use the time as a measurement of how much money you owe them. For example, if your query has been executing for 1 minute, you owe them $1. If your queries have been executing for 2 minutes, you owe them $2. That's how it works. And the first problem with select all, or select like and all of the values, so you understand that select all and like that query and the query that we just executed in our products query set are similar. Products query set just literally puts all the values right here. but select all is just with a star. So these two queries are similar, and the first problem is that they literally execute longer. That means that in some cases you may pay additional amount of money. So you literally can pay more because of your not as great, because of your poor queries. That's how it works. The second problem is that your queries again execute longer. So your user, your application, everyone waits for those queries, and you can trim a lot of seconds, a lot of milliseconds by just literally using the values that you need, not using select all from, because select all it's a really heavy query for SQL to execute, because literally we get all of the values from our table. Again, you wait longer. And the third problem is that you require more resources than you literally need. So instead of just, for example, having one SQL server, you need to have two SQL servers because of the load that your application produces. And the load cannot come from your users, but can come from your poor queries. So for example, you have only 10 users, but your database, not 10, but like, let me say 10,000 users, but your database fails to, your database just fails. And you need to get an additional server, you again pay more, you need to set up an additional database, that's just harder. And all of that because of your poor SQL queries. Well, a lot of people say these are not my queries, these are ORM queries, and that's a valid point, but literally you need to always think about your SQL queries. And when you write something in Django, look for those selects, for those inserts, for every function that somehow works with your database. You should optimize it, you should think about it, so how you can make it better, how you can make it faster, how you can, again, optimize it. Okay, now let's talk about Django query optimization. So there are a lot of functions, a lot of methods for optimizing your queries, and today we'll talk about optimizing query sets. So how can we optimize query sets? And that video is for the beginners, so if you don't know anything about the things that I'll talk about today, don't worry. So the functions that we'll talk about today apply to all, filter, and exclude. So to the functions that return query set as the result. And I'll talk about all today, so I'll use all today because it's the most, like, everybody knows about all, everybody knows about filter. I'll not talk about exclude and other functions that return query sets. But you need to know that all of the functions that I'll show you today will apply to exclude, filter, all, and other functions that return query sets as their result. Okay, I think I talked too much, but let's just start. So there are three functions that we can use normally: only, values, and defer. Defer is a really specific function, so I'll not talk about it today. I'll talk about only and values. So let's first of all use our only. Only is a function that accepts strings as the fields that you need to get from your SQL database, for example, or from your database, any database actually. For example, when we're talking about product.objects.all, just product.objects.all without only, we get all of the fields. But if I'll append only at the end and I'll write title, manufacturer, and price, so the fields that I really need from my SQL, then let's see what are the results. As you can see, the same query set. Let's save that query set to products, or let's call it products optimized. And now let's inspect our SQL query. So product optimized dot query, and let's wrap it to string. Now what do we do right here? Instead of getting all the values, so instead of executing select all, we only execute select products ID. So again, I said that ID is required for Django to really understand where is the specific model located. So ID is required. Okay, that's not a problem. Then we have title. Title, I put the title in only. Then we have manufacturer. Again, it's right here. And we have price. Price is also right here. So now instead of just really querying all of the values, we only query the things that we need. That's great. our query will work faster and it's already optimized. But there is one thing about only that you need to know. If, for example, I want to work with my first product, let's get it, product optimized, product equals product optimized 0. So that's a normal product. I can query its title, I can query its price, I can query whatever. But what if I'll try to, for example, query its A value, so the field with the name A. As you can see, when I executed my SQL statement in products optimized, I did not put A as a value inside of my only function. What will happen if I put A right here? Well, actually, I'll see the result. I'll see the real value of A. But there is a problem. Instead of executing one SQL query, I executed two SQL queries right here. So what does that mean? Only function accepts fields that you want to query from your database and puts them inside of SQL query. But if you try to get other fields of your model, your Django ORM will make other queries. So what does that mean? In some cases, you can make tons of queries without even knowing about that. And that's why you should always inspect what your Django ORM does, how your queries execute, and so on. So again, only will get all the values that you need, but if somehow, in some place, your code requires another value from your model, you execute excessive SQL queries. So what you can do? First of all, you can put all the values that you need inside of your only. So for example, if I know that I'll use product.a value, I can put it right here. That's the first step, because if we do it like that, let's inspect our SQL query. So query, as you can see right here, I get my product.a. And now I can easily use it without any excessive SQL calls. That's the first thing, that if you can, and if you know all the fields that your model uses, put them right here. But secondly, if you just started working on the project, or if you don't know all the fields that will be used in your models, in your query sets, then what you can do is you can inspect SQL queries, so you can put the fields that you know will be used. For example, I know that title, manufacturer, and price will be used. I put them inside of my only. And after that, I inspect all of my SQL queries coming from my Django application. And if I see that in some places I use A, I use B, I use C, I use product secret ID, or whatever, then I literally just copy that value and put it inside of only. So you need to be really careful with only, because you can make a lot of excessive SQL calls. But it's really beneficial for you, again, because you optimize your queries, and it will not break your application when you don't have a value inside of only. So if I don't have my product secret ID right now, it will just query it from the database. It's really nice, because if you just started working on a project that needs to be optimized, so for example your boss says, optimize that project, or we need to optimize SQL queries, but you have no idea what values, where the values will be used, then you can use only and literally put the values that you know about, and after that inspect all of the SQL queries and append the values that you need. That's really nice. And that's about only. So be really careful with only, because you can make excessive SQL calls, but it's a really great tool for Django ORM optimization. Okay, and I want to say that only function returns normal Django SQL models. But now let's talk about other function, which is called okay, let's do it right here, which is called values. So instead of only, I can literally just write values. And in some places, values is better. Why? Let's just see. So now let's print product optimized. As you can see, we have query set of some kind of a dictionary. So yeah, these are dictionaries. When we put values, instead of returning a model, we return dictionaries. Let's first of all inspect our SQL query, product optimized, str from product optimized.query, like that. As you can see, the SQL query is the same as it was in only, but the difference is that instead of returning Django ORM models, we return raw Python dictionaries. And there are two advantages in that. First of all, we just literally take less memory, so dictionaries require less memory rather than Django models. That's just normal. We take less space, less RAM. That's the first plus. And the second plus is that we literally cannot query other values from our database. So what do I mean? If I use products optimized right now, products optimized 0, for example, as you can see, I have a dictionary. And if I try to put, for example, product secret ID, as you can see, dictionary object has no attribute product secret ID. And that's normal because I don't have that attribute, even if I will try to use it like that. But if I try to use price, for example, as you can see, it gives me 100. That's just about it. That's just great. So the only difference in values is that, first of all, instead of returning raw Django models, we return normal Python dictionaries. That's the first advantage. And the second one is that we cannot make any other SQL queries. So not make any excessive queries to our database. That may be beneficial if you know your application and you literally just, for example, see that, okay, I have a problem right here, attribute error, dictionary object has no attribute product secret ID. Oh yeah, I forgot to put product secret ID in my only. So you can just copy it, put it inside of, sorry, not only but values, so put it inside of values. So just put product secret ID right here, and your application will work, consuming less memory and without any excessive SQL calls. But if you need, so that's about values, like raw Python dictionaries with optimized SQL queries without any excessive calls. But if you want to use models, so Django models, for example, to update some values, to, I don't know, query some values, to literally use the Django model interface, then you use only. And again, only may be beneficial if you don't know your application. So if you don't know if you need that field or not, you can just put the fields that you're already acknowledged about in your only, and after that, inspect your SQL queries and append the fields that you will need in the future. So that's how it works. And these are the two SQL queries or Django optimization queries that I wanted to talk about today. So that video is pretty long, but I wanted to cover all the things. Why do we need optimization? Why it's important? Why it's beneficial for us? So I think you know about it right now. And that is just the first video of Django query optimization, because the topic is enormous. Again, we have foreign keys, we have other functions like defer, only, we have lazy query set execution, we have a lot of things that we need to talk about with you. So if you like the video, share it, leave a comment and leave a like. Thank you and good luck.